Welcome, everyone, to TechDaily.ai. I'm your host, David, and I'm joined today by our guest, Sophia.
Hi, it's great to be here.
You can sponsor this podcast for just $25. Your message will be featured across major platforms like Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and more. If you're interested, visit TechDaily.ai to get started today.
That's a great deal, honestly.
Right. Okay, so let's just get right into it. There is this very specific kind of exhaustion creeping into the modern workplace right now.
No, absolutely. People are definitely feeling it.
Yeah, it's like it is the fatigue of sitting in front of a supposedly hyper-intelligent AI model, but you still feel like you are doing all of the heavy lifting.
Right, you are doing the grunt work.
Exactly. Like you copy a spreadsheet from one window,
Right.
then you paste it into a chat interface, then you write this, huge, highly detailed paragraph explaining exactly what you want to do.
And then you just sit there and wait.
You wait. And then you look at the response and realize the AI missed a key piece of live data. So what do? You navigate into your company's CRM, you grab that data yourself, paste it back in, copy the final result, and then, manually move it over to an email draft.
It is a relentless manual loop. And if you are working like that today, you are likely wasting up to 40% of your time.
Wow, 40%. Just for moving stuff around.
Yeah, up to 40%, because you aren't actually automating your workflow at that point. You have just, you've basically become the connective tissue between your applications. You are acting as a human plugin.
A human plugin.
Wow.
That's exactly what it feels like.
Right.
You are the one manually reasoning and moving data and bridging the gaps because the AI is just stuck inside its isolated chat box.
Exactly. It's completely siloed.
So the mission for today's discussion is to help you, the listener, break out of that manual trap. We are going to map out the exact scaffolding required to automate complex, messy, multi-part work.
Because the landscape in 2026 has completely shifted.
Yeah. It really has. We're going to break down the actual technical differences between prompts, skills, plugins, MCPs, and scripts. And the crucial takeaway here is that you'll learn how to orchestrate real work without needing, a computer science degree.
Yeah, and that's the most exciting part, honestly, because the models themselves, whether you are using GPT 5.5 or Claude or really anything else, they are incredibly smart.
Right. The raw intelligence is definitely there.
Exactly. They are highly capable of navigating ambiguity, parsing really complex logic, and planning out multi-part work. But all of that raw intelligence is effectively trapped if it doesn't have the right harness to interact with the real world.
A harness.
Yeah. I like to think about it like a mech suit.
Okay, a mech suit. I love a good sci-fi reference. Walk me through the mechanics of that.
So, think about Darth Vader, or, well, even the Transformers. Darth Vader has this incredibly powerful mind, right? And access to the Force. But to actually function, to walk down a hallway or, get things done in the physical universe, he requires that massive life-supporting suit of armor.
Right. Without the suit, he's basically helpless.
Exactly. And Transformers are giant metal suits that translate an intelligence into heavy structural capabilities.
Yeah.
Large language models operate on the exact same principle.
I see.
The intelligence is the core, but the scaffolding, the suit you build around it, is what actually enables it to reach out, touch your live files, format your code, verify your data, and, actually send your emails.
So basically, without the suit, you just have a really smart brain floating in a jar.
Exactly. A brain in a jar.
Completely isolated from your actual work environment. It can give you great advice, but it can't execute anything for you.
Precisely.
And I guess that brings us to the first piece of that suit, which is where almost everyone starts. And honestly, where almost everyone gets stuck, right? The prompt.
Oh, yes. The prompt. In the current era, here in 2026, we need to fundamentally redefine what a prompt is actually for.
Because we're using them wrong.
Completely wrong. A prompt is strictly what you use when you want to do something exactly once. It is for a temporary, small, highly specific task.
But that is not how people are using them at all.
No, it's not.
In most corporate environments I see, people are writing these massive, sprawling essays into the chat window.
Oh, the mega prompt.
Yes, they're pasting in like 3 pages of text, trying to describe an entire repeatable workflow step by step. They include all their formatting preferences, their tone guidelines, background context, everything.
And then they save it somewhere to reuse.
Exactly. They save these mega prompts in a Notion page or a Google Doc just to copy and paste them every single day. So why doesn't that work?
Because it is entirely the wrong container for structural work. A prompt is just a fragile piece of text. When you overload a model with a massive prompt, you run into severe technical limitations.
Like what? What actually breaks?
First, you degrade the model's context window. It literally just loses track of the instructions halfway through. It gets confused.
Right, it forgets step 2 by the time it reaches step 5.
Exactly.
Right.
Second, a prompt doesn't carry any system permissions with it. It doesn't bring any tools.
So it can't actually do anything besides output more text.
Right. And you can't easily hand a massive multi-step prompt to your coworker and expect it to work perfectly for them. Because, their local environment is different, their data access is different.
Right.
And they might just tweak one sentence in that text block that causes the AI to hallucinate a completely different output.
It reminds me of trying to fit an entire company's employee handbook onto a single Post-it note.
That is a perfect analogy.
You were sitting there with a microscopic pen trying to squeeze in, the vacation policy, the quarterly goals, the dress code, the emergency exits, all onto this tiny yellow square.
And it just becomes a mess.
Yeah, and then you try to hand that sticky note to a new hire and say, here's how we run the company. I mean, it is technically writing, but it's completely the wrong container for a permanent structural process.
Exactly. If the task is just, hey, summarize this meeting transcript, sure, use the Post-it note, use a simple prompt.
Keep it temporary.
Right. But if you find yourself copying and pasting that exact same massive set of instructions every Tuesday to generate your weekly analytics report, you are wasting your time. You have outgrown the prompt.
Which means we need to scale up.
We do.
If prompts are just for one-off tasks, what is the right container for the work you and your team do every single day? This leads us to the distinction between skills and plugins.
Yes. The foundational building blocks.
Let's start with skills. What exactly is a skill in this specific context?
A skill is where you teach the AI a reusable process. Think of it as establishing a clear house style for your team.
Okay, a house style, like a set of guidelines.
Exactly. Let's say your marketing department has a very specific tone, structure, and approval checklist for every single document they produce.
Right, they don't want to sound generic.
Or maybe your engineering team has a rigid, multi-step way they want pull requests reviewed. You don't want to explain that from scratch every time in a prompt. You encode that process into a skill.
I think people get a bit intimidated by the word skill, though, because it sounds like we are talking about, writing complex software architecture.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds heavy.
But technologically speaking, a skill is surprisingly simple.
It is elegantly simple. A skill is essentially just a clear markdown document.
Just a text file.
Literally just a lightweight text file that describes in precise detail how you do that specific type of work.
So why Markdown specifically?
The reason it relies on Markdown is because it is universally parsed by language models without carrying heavy formatting overhead. It's clean. You write the skill once, and whether you are using an OpenAI tool or an Anthropic tool, the AI knows exactly how to execute your house style consistently.
Because the structure is enforced programmatically by the Markdown itself.
Exactly. It removes the ambiguity.
There's an interesting concept to apply here called the power law of skills, which is the idea that 20% of your skills are going to generate 80% of the value.
Yes, and that is a vital filter to use when you start building these.
Because people probably want to automate everything once they learn this.
Exactly. Once people realize how easy it is to write a Markdown file that dictates a process, the temptation is to write a skill for literally every single thing you do.
Which just creates clutter.
Total clutter. You have to identify that core 20%. The tasks that are repeated constantly, where the cost of getting it wrong is high and the value of consistency across your team is massive.
Okay, so a skill is the Markdown document that tells the AI how to do the work.
Right.
But there is a very sharp, crucial distinction between a skill and a plugin. They are absolutely not the same thing.
Not at all. That's a huge point of confusion.
What's the difference?
If a skill is the instruction manual for how to do a task, a plugin is the complete self-contained package around the entire workflow.
The package. Okay.
Yeah. A plugin can certainly include your skills, but it also wraps in the necessary tools, the metadata, the app integrations, and the system commands. It takes the sprawling process and puts it into a single installable box.
Let's ground this with an example so people can visualize it.
Yeah.
How does this look for, say, a team doing outbound sales emails?
That is a great use case. So the skill part of that workflow is the Markdown document that says, here is what a good structured outbound email looks like for our enterprise clients.
So it defines the tone.
Yes. Here is the hook, here is the middle value proposition, and here is how you write a strong closing paragraph.
Right, the house style we talked about.
Exactly. But if you just have the skill, you are still the human plugin.
Right, because the AI doesn't know who you're emailing.
Exactly. You still have to manually go find the client's name, manually look up their purchase history in your CRM, and paste all of that context into the chat window so the AI can use the skill.
Which brings us right back to the copy-paste exhaustion.
Yes. But a plugin solves this by packaging the skill together with an active connection to your live data.
Ah, I see.
The plugin automatically reaches into Salesforce, pulls the live client details itself, applies the skill to format the email perfectly, and hands you the finished product.
Now, here is where I want to push back a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
When I hear the word plugin, my brain immediately goes to an app store.
Oh, sure, like on your phone.
Yeah, I think of scrolling through a digital marketplace, finding a generic weather app or a calendar tool, and clicking a download button. I mean, I'm not a developer. I don't want to build software. Aren't plugins just pre-made things we passively shop for?
That is probably the biggest misconception holding teams back right now. The App Store analogy is far too small, and it drastically undersells the power of what is actually happening with AI scaffolding today.
So how should we be thinking about it?
True plugins, in this context, are not generic consumer apps. They are custom workflow packages that you build for your team's specific, highly idiosyncratic, messy internal processes.
So they are bespoke.
Very bespoke. You aren't buying a generic add-on. You are drawing a boundary around your unique daily work and saying, I am going to package this up so my whole team can share it without manually reconstructing the setup every single time.
So it is active creation, not passive consumption.
Exactly. You are building the package.
But that raises the most critical technical question, right? Once you have built this plug-in package, how does the AI actually reach out and securely touch your live data without hallucinating or, breaking your systems?
That's the scary part for a lot of people.
Yeah. We need to unpack the technical plumbing inside the plugin, which involves MCPs, hooks, and scripts.
This is the invisible machinery that makes the whole system reliable. Let's start with MCPs, which stands for Model Context Protocols.
Okay, MCPs.
You can think of MCPs and their associated connectors as the universal internet plugs for your AI agent.
Universal internet plugs. Explain how that actually works under the hood. Like, what was it like before?
Well, before MCPs became the standard, every single app integration required a custom API connector built from scratch for every different model.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It was. If you wanted GPT to talk to Slack, you had to build a specific bridge. If you wanted Claude to talk to Slack, you had to build a completely different bridge.
Just a lot of duplicated engineering work.
Exactly. But an MCP acts like a universal USB-C cable for AI. It standardizes the data exchange regardless of which LLM you use.
Ooh, wow. That's huge.
It really is. It is the client-server architecture that allows the agent to reach into systems where your actual work lives, whether that is Salesforce, Slack, Figma, or GitHub, and retrieve live, real-time data securely.
And without an MCP, your agent is just guessing based on old information it was trained on months or years ago.
Exactly. It's operating in the dark.
But with an MCP, it plugs into the wall, handles the API authentication, and pulls the immediate truth.
Yes. But there is a major point of confusion here that we really need to clear up. An MCP is not a plugin.
Okay, wait, say that again.
An MCP is not a plugin. People use the terms interchangeably in meetings all the time, and it causes huge architectural mistakes.
Because they're entirely different scopes, right?
Right. An MCP is just the plug. It lives inside the larger plugin package.
Got it.
A plugin might contain an MCP to fetch real-time messages from Slack, but it also contains the markdown skill on how to interpret the tone of those messages and the instructions on what to do with them next.
That makes a lot of sense.
Think of it like this. The plugin is the entire kitchen appliance. The MCP is just the power cord you plug into the wall to turn it on.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So the MCP handles the data retrieval. It gets the live context in and out. But what happens when the workflow requires absolute precision, like formatting code or doing complex math? Where do hooks and scripts fit into the plumbing?
Hooks and scripts are arguably the most important part of building a system you can actually trust in a production environment because they handle the deterministic parts of a workflow.
Deterministic, meaning things that have a strict binary right or wrong answer.
Precisely. Look, large language models are brilliant at navigating ambiguity, brainstorming, summarizing, and writing text.
The creative stuff.
Yes, but at their core, they are probabilistic. They predict the next most likely token. You do not want a probabilistic system handling something that requires absolute, uncompromising precision.
That sounds dangerous.
It is. If a piece of code needs specific indentation, or a database schema needs absolute validation, or an output must be a perfectly structured JSON payload, do not ask the AI model to think about it or imagine doing it correctly.
But wait, why not just make sure the JSON is formatted perfectly right there in the prompt? Does that work?
Because the model might decide to add a friendly conversational phrase like, here is your perfectly formatted JSON data, right at the top of the output.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And the moment it does that, it breaks the API downstream that is expecting pure code. It is probabilistic. It wants to be helpful and chatty.
Right. It's like asking an AI to do deterministic checks is like hiring a brilliant, award-winning creative writer to do your corporate taxes.
Yes, that's exactly what it's like.
You don't want the creative writer to imagine what your tax deductions could be based on vibes, or write a beautiful sweeping poem about your quarterly expenses.
No, you definitely don't.
You just want to use a calculator. The script is the calculator.
Exactly. You build the workflow so that when it comes time for the hard math or the rigid formatting, the workflow pauses the AI and hands the task over to a deterministic script.
So how does that architecture actually look in practice?
It looks like this. The user makes a request, the LLM generates the initial payload, and then a hook intercepts that payload and pauses the AI.
Just freezes it.
Right. And it passes the data to a hard-coded Python or JavaScript script. The script runs the formatting, validates the schema, or checks the math.
And what if there's a mistake?
If it fails, the script kicks an error back to the LLM to fix it. If it passes, it moves forward. It does not rely on the model remembering to be careful. You build that absolute certainty directly into the plugin package.
Wow. That completely reframes how I think about this. The plugin is almost like a grab bag present.
How so?
Well, inside the box, you have a skill giving the human instructions, an MCP reaching out to Slack for the live data, the AI probabilistically reasoning about the request, and then a deterministic script making absolutely sure the final output is formatted perfectly before you ever even see it.
Yes. And when you assemble those Lego bricks correctly, you have a system that doesn't just generate text, but actually executes real work reliably and safely.
Which brings us to, honestly, the most empowering part of this shift. Now that we understand all these Lego bricks, prompts, skills, plugins, MCPs, scripts, who is actually building this structure?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because a few years ago, the answer was exclusively software engineers. If you wanted scaffolding, you needed a back-end dev team.
That was definitely the 2022 era problem. If scaffolding just meant complex back-end engineering, then only engineers could design it.
Right.
But the visual tools and platforms have evolved so dramatically by 2026 that building these workflows no longer requires a background in coding. The bottleneck is no longer technical execution, it is domain expertise.
That is a massive shift in the workplace. The most valuable capability right now is what we call workflow bounding.
Yes. Workflow bounding. It is the ability to look at a messy, sprawling daily job and draw neat, precise edges around it.
What does that look like day to day?
It is understanding the semantic meaning of the work well enough to know what belongs in the package and what doesn't. If you make a plugin too big, the LLM gets confused about which tools to use.
And if it's too small?
If you make it too small, it's not worth the effort to install. You have to find the exact perfect boundaries.
Let's talk about the customer success example, because I think it illustrates this perfectly. Let's say you want to automate customer success for a mid-sized software company. The instinct for someone who doesn't understand workflow bounding, maybe a developer who doesn't actually talk to customers, is just to build one massive, monolithic customer success plugin and cram every single tool and skill into it.
Which is an absolute disaster in practice.
Why does it fail?
The LLM gets overwhelmed by the tool overlap. It hallucinates the wrong data because it has too many options and the whole system just collapses.
Right.
A domain expert, someone who actually works in customer success every single day, knows that you shouldn't build one massive tool. They know how to draw the boundaries.
Because they know the actual job.
Exactly. They will look at the work and say, no, we need one specific plugin strictly for handling refund logic. We need a completely separate plugin for activating new users. And we need a third highly specific plugin for managing complex enterprise upgrades.
Because they actually understand what good work looks like on the ground. They know exactly where one task naturally ends and another begins.
Exactly. The domain knowledge is what matters now. We are seeing incredible examples of non-technical folks doing this.
Like who?
Consider an editorial worker who built a custom plugin to do first-pass reviews on incoming articles. She didn't write a single charted her specific workflow into a skill, how to read for coherence, how to flag factual inconsistencies, and where to look for rough transitions. The AI doesn't replace her final editorial judgment, but the plugin automates the heavy lifting of that first pass, saving her massive amounts of time.
And there's the design example too, right?
Oh, yes.
A designer who connects a plugin directly to Figma. It uses an MCP to pull down the current design language from the live file and applies it systematically to new wireframes. I mean, they aren't writing back-end Python. They're using their deep knowledge of visual design to arrange the scaffolding.
You're acting as architects of their own workflows. They understand the edges of their job better than any engineer ever could.
But this highlights a really frustrating corporate disconnect right now. I hear about this all the time from managers and directors.
The boardroom problem.
Yes. CEOs and senior leadership are standing in the boardroom demanding sweeping AI transformation. They want productivity up 50% by next quarter. But they don't understand this scaffolding concept at all. They view AI as like magic dust you just sprinkle on a laptop.
They often have zero clue about the mechanics of the harness. They think a raw LLM chat interface is the entire product.
Right. So the employees who actually understand the work try to explain, hey, I am building out this AI workflow, but I need time to integrate a deterministic script at the end of it so we don't accidentally send malformed JSON data to our client databases.
And what does leadership say?
The leadership gets confused and says, why are you asking for scripts? Why are we writing rules? Just trust the AI to do it. Tell it to be careful.
Which is incredibly dangerous from a security and reliability standpoint.
That's terrifying.
If leadership doesn't understand the fundamental difference between an AI probabilistically guessing and a script deterministically verifying, they cannot effectively support their organization's transformation.
You just won't get it.
They will underfund the scaffolding and over-rely on the raw model. They need the same mental model we are discussing right now. They need to understand that the intelligence of the model is only as useful as the boundaries and tools we provide it.
Okay, let's synthesize this mental model so everyone listening has it locked in. Let's do a quick review of the progression of the scaffolding architecture from simple to complex.
Sounds good. So if you are only going to do a task once, or if it is highly temporary, you use a prompt. That is your post-it note.
Right. And if you do the task repeatedly, and you need to enforce a specific house style across your team without typing it out every time,
you build a skill. That is your universally readable markdown file that dictates the exact process.
Okay, moving up the chain, if the workflow needs to be shared and requires a combination of instructions, tools, system commands, and assets all in one place.
You package it into a plugin. That is the complete self-contained appliance.
And when that workflow needs to reach out and pull live, real-time data securely from an external system like Salesforce or your company Slack.
You utilize an MCP, a Model Context Protocol, which acts as the standardized connection cable inside the plugin to pull that data.
Finally, if a specific part of the workflow involves code formatting, schema validation, or absolute mathematical precision,
you intercept the AI and hand the task to a deterministic script. You use the calculator.
It is a logical, powerful progression. But it's vital to remember that the goal here isn't to build a giant, convoluted museum of plugins that you never actually use.
Oh, definitely not.
You don't need to automate every single breath you take at work.
Not everything needs to be a plugin. Some things should stay as a simple prompt. Some things should be pure scripts without any AI involved at all.
Right. Don't overcomplicate it.
And most importantly, the final judgment of whether the output is actually good should always remain human. The AI is doing the heavy lifting, but you are the director.
The ultimate goal of our discussion today is simply to help you identify the parts of your specific work that are structured enough to package up. It's about giving you the leverage and the vocabulary to stop manually moving data around all day.
It is about upgrading yourself from being the manual human plugin to being the architect who designs the system.
Which leaves us with one final provocative question to think about as you head back to your day.
I love this part.
Take a hard look at your own messy daily workload. If you could map out the boundaries of your most unique domain-specific workflow tomorrow and wrap it into a single, reliable, shareable plugin, what process would you choose? And exactly how many hours of your life would you get back every single week?